those numbers again later, too. Now then, I have the great pleasure of reintroducing to our listening audience a young woman who brought her first book to my attention last year. And I have to say that although that book was not really into my favorite genre, science fiction, kind of a fantasy story, I really, really liked the book. You'll remember our talking to Carey Borgens about her book, The Wolf Experiment. And I told her before we came on air, Carey, that I had put The Wolf Experience in my top 10. It made number 4 on my top 10 list last year. Welcome. I appreciate your being here again this morning. Carey Borgens.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, Carey says she's working nights now, so this is a little early for her, so I really appreciate your coming in today. Carey, let's remind our listeners about that first book that I was talking about, that sci-fi fantasy that we talked about a year and a half ago now, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's called The Wolf Experiments. As I said, it was one of the best, most interesting, most entertaining, a real page-turner for me. I read a lot of books, 4 or 5 a week usually, maybe sometimes even more. So tell me about your experience with The Wolf Experiments. How has that gone for you? This is your debut novel.
Well, I've actually been working on a sequel for that one as well.
Oh gosh, okay. So coming along very well.
I'm all about sequels.
All about sequels. All right, we'll talk about this one a little bit later too. But you had your book published, and now we're into a second edition with another publisher, I think, is what we're doing. Yeah.
Actually, it's a same publisher, different editor.
Okay.
One of the tricks about getting started and being new in the industry is there are some things to be cautious of. Mm-hmm. Don't try to save or pinch a penny here and there. Mm-hmm. My original editor missed a couple of things, and after the book was published, I had the average reader contact me to let me know about things that were wrong, punctuation mm-hmm. problems, and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I have gone back. I have a second editor that I'm working with. Someone who has a little bit more experience, and mm-hmm. we've re-edited, made some minor plot changes, mm-hmm. and I have mm-hmm. a second edition that's going to be coming out next year on the same book, second edition.
Oh, good. Now, wonderful. That is very good. That's the book that you're going to be bringing to our Books and Authors and all that jazz
that's
next
correct.
April, I hope.
That's
all
correct.
Right, good deal. All right. Well, now that's enough about the Wolf Experiments, because we talked about that last year. I want to spend some time now reminding our listeners, first of all, a little bit about who you are, and then I want to talk about your new book that I have here. It is called Finding the Unicorn. Again, surprisingly, I just felt moved to turn the pages as fast as I could in this book because, again, fantasy, books like this, not my favorite genre, but you are making a believer out of me, I want you to know, and I'm very thrilled to have you here, the opportunity to talk with you. Remind our listeners a little bit about who you are personally, though, because you live locally here.
I do. I've lived in the Weatherford area for about 7 years on the 22nd of this month.
Okay.
And I'm an animal lover. I tend to write about animals. They're a part of all of my stories. Mm-hmm. I am the proud
animal lover way back from childhood.
That's right, from childhood. When I was born, our household had 5 cats and a dog, mm-hmm. and so they've been with me my whole life, just mm-hmm. having all kinds of pets. Mm-hmm. Currently, I have...
What's your menagerie now?
Yes, currently I have 6 cats, 3 dogs, and 2 horses.
Okay, all right. And you work as a veterinary assistant, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
I work in the veterinary field, and I work nights. I tend to do more of veterinary triage at the front door. Mm-hmm. It's an emergency-only clinic, so mm-hmm. It's not kind of a hazard, though. I tend to have the animals that people don't want.
Well, you know what? So do your people here in your books. I mean, your main character here really has an affinity for animals as well. And she, in fact, animals are just drawn to her. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about the book itself called Finding the Unicorn. It's exciting to have that second book out, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to believe that I've actually gotten to the point of having a second book.
Well, sure. Tell us about the book. How did it come about? How did you first dream up Anouk and her friends and her animal friends?
Dream up is the exact right word, because it started with a dream I have. I mm-hmm. have very, very vivid dreams, and I tend to jot them down, and generally the stories that I write are those those journal entries that take off on their own. If I can get past a paragraph or two of a dream and it just keeps going, generally that's what becomes a manuscript and then eventually a novel.
And in the book, even Anouk dreams.
She does, and some of her dreams are actually based on my own dreams.
Yeah, and, well, we need to talk about this a little bit more then. But Anouk dreams, and many of her dreams are really kind of prophecies about what is going to happen in the future, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, Anouk is where the book starts. Anouk has struggles that she has to overcome, and she's a young girl who's kind of lived a sheltered life. She's had a small little... I guess I should say this takes place in a tiny village. You kind of
many centuries ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
You tend to picture kind of a medieval time type of setting, and she's had a sheltered life. And the story starts out where she has to leave this place where she's grown up, this place that she's only ever been, and so she starts out on a journey to kind of look for this unicorn because the world is changing and she wants to keep things the way they are, and really things need to stay the way they are. So off she goes looking for this unicorn, because in finding it, it's going to put a lot of things right that started to go wrong with the world.
And we need to tell our listeners that we're talking literally about a unicorn. We're not talking about a euphemism for anything else. This is truly a fantasy story where your characters are elves and dwarves and centaurs and these beautiful young women and the big strong men on beautiful horses and unicorns and monsters and dragons.
That's right.
I mean, so this is the kind of world we're looking at here, but it's a very charming story where you have placed this young woman in peril, but yet she is the hero.
That's right.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about who you based her on, maybe.
Well, I think a lot of writers like me, you base your main character on yourself because it makes it easier to write. It makes it more believable. You can put a little more emotion into it. So.
Okay. Well, so she has left her home and she has joined really a band of warriors who are going on to fight the evil, the darkness.
Right. She's off to fight a battle, and the reason why she's going is that her brothers are going, and she doesn't want to be left behind. So she follows her brothers. She has 3 brothers. She follows them off there. She dresses as a boy because it's not appropriate for girls to be doing the things that she's doing.
Right.
So she kind of goes in disguise, but she makes some friends along the way, and
a lot of them are animals.
A lot of them are animals that she picks up along the journey, the injured and the ones nobody wants.
Yeah. Well, again, very charming story and a charming character, and I want to talk more about her, but this might be a good time, Carey, for us to break for our station IDs and a few other messengers. Let's